In this series of discussions, we have 4 sessions. This is the third, discussing profitability through using innovative new age technologies. This is what we would going to learn from this panel. And now, may I request Mr. Sugata Basu, Chief Technology and Digital Officer of Aditya Birla Group, for the keynote speech. Before that, I'm going to introduce him to you.
Thank you, Mr. Gohil. Good evening, esteemed panel. It's indeed an honor and a pleasure to be here today. And it was a little bit of a surprise to be asked to give a keynote to a group of textile experts. And I've been in this industry for 3 years now. Largely, technology has been my domain. But what I will try and do is just talk about how technology is influencing the textile sector globally in a few specific areas. And because the theme is around profitability, typically what I have seen is when we talk about profitability, there are two axes on which most businesses try and operate. One is to increase revenue, and the other is obviously to reduce cost. But textile is one business where I have seen there are two other important aspects. One is obviously the application aspect. I think the way the business works is all of us are trying to find new uses for our products in different other industries, in collaborating with them. That is one way of increasing the demand. So I think technology will have a big play in that particular area, and I want to touch upon that. And the other part is, like many other businesses, the environment impact will have a big role to play in how this industry grows and prospers in the years to come. There is a big component of sustainability in the textile sector. So what I will try and do is start with sustainability, because probably that is the focus area for most industries in today's world. It is not about growing your business, but growing your business in a sustainable manner. And if you see our industry, I think you guys are the experts here. We are a very old industry, both globally and in India, which has its own pluses in the sense that we are very mature, we are well established. But there are also certain limitations. Our assets are very old. You see, especially in India, I'm not so much familiar with other countries, but India or Southeast Asia, where we have a lot of operations, many of our plants are fairly old, 50, 60 years old. So the way they operate is significantly different to what the new age plants operate. The other part is this industry is still very dependent on contractual labor, because operating costs, managing costs is a big part of the play. So how do you handle contractual labor and at the same time have innovation, have technology come into play? That's a big piece in the game. So if you look at sustainability, there are 2-3 areas which I think the textile business has to focus very strongly on. One is reducing wastage. When I say wastage, it is all about, usage of less water, maybe less emission, usage of less environmentally harmful dyes. And a lot of big players are making significant investment in that, because that is what the consumer is wanting today. If you look at the success stories, let's say Levi's. One of the reasons why Levi's is exceptionally popular among the millennium people is because of its sustainable water campaign. We are making jeans with less water. That is a story which is really become popular in the world, and today's youngsters are able to connect with that story. So it is not enough for the textile business to become sustainable in manufacturing. We also have to ensure that that story gets told to our consumers, because then only will that get accepted. The second piece is obviously around circular economy. If you look at textile, largely we say the upper end is the fashion end. And in the fashion end, there is a lot of exclusivity. So we have big brands which make a lot of products, spending a lot of money. But if they sell a fraction of that product, the other things get destroyed. So that's a colossal damage, colossal wastage. And I think this attitude of making and then trying to sell, that's something which maybe the industry needs to start changing. Circular economy is what A lot of brands are asking for. How are you ensuring that whatever you are consuming, you are either giving it back or you're growing it back? I think as a business, we will have to really focus on using technology to send this message out, traceability. So I'm sure many of you, I know my colleagues in Raymond's are using technology in a very, very big manner. So things like blockchain, things like artificial intelligence to predict demand, can we use that to reduce wastage? I think that's one theme which I would really want us to probably look at in a big way. The second connected theme with that is, can I look at making costs, reductions of cost in the whole process to be, or manufacturing excellence, let me put it that way. Manufacturing excellence, can that be the theme in which the business has to invest a lot? If you look at textile business, the front end of the business which connects to the customer has become heavily technology driven. So digital adoption in your stores, digital adoption in terms of selling online, digital adoption in terms of, let's say, collaborating and creating new designs. Every company is investing heavily in that. Every brand is investing heavily. But this front end needs a strong back end in terms of manufacturing, in terms of supply chain. Are we investing enough in the back end is something, again, which as a business we need to see, because the ability to cut costs lies in managing your supply chain very, very effectively. If I look at my own business, we have been investing heavily in building textile specific supply chain solutions. There are a lot of standard solutions available in the market, but there are certain, I don't want to use the word, certain very specific attributes in this business, which unless you are aware of as an expert, you cannot factor into the solution. And that's where the textile expertise comes into play. So investing in supply chain, investing in a robust, smart warehousing or smart distribution network, I think those are things which business needs to really focus on if we want to build a sustainable future for ourselves. The third piece, which I think is the new piece, which is in terms of addressing new applications and new customers. As a business, if you see Southeast Asia, maybe the Indian subcontinent, we are big players in textile because we are playing the cost lever, manufacturing volumes at lower cost, which is fair. I think that is our capability, that is our competency. But it is also important to understand that today's consumer is becoming very, very demanding. Every consumer, even if I buy the same linen shirt which my company makes, I tend to think that it is a unique shirt made for me. If as a business we are able to prove that yes, this shirt is unique for me, I will be willing to pay a premium. So ability to customize your product, ability to customize your services to address each and every segment of customer, that becomes very essential. But at the same time, you have to do it by being cost competitive. So it's not going to be very, very easy. So this is a conundrum which I think the textile business really has to address. And this is where technology has a big role to play. We have a lot of data on the customers, a lot of data on our products. Can we use artificial intelligence? Can we use big data? Can we leverage new technology like 3D printing? Instead of necessarily making everything at the manufacturing hub, can we also make the specialty products closer to the consumer where we can get it to him faster? We customize it better and charge a premium. So a mix of maybe a volume driven standard products game and a specialized customized game is maybe what the future is for the business. And the last piece which I want to touch upon is the piece around I think this is not really technology, but this is more product. Today, if you see the customers, a lot of products are getting integrated. What I mean is, if you look at, let's say, electronic sector, television, telephone, camera, these are all now combined into one handset, which we call as the mobile. Most of us are using it to see our movies, listen to music, track out. So almost 50% of our life runs on these devices. Similarly, if you look at apparels, many of us are expecting much more from our apparels. Can it track my health parameters? Can it help improve my performance when I'm doing high performance sports? Can it help me perform better in, let's say, environments which is very hot or very cold? So the standard functionality of a cloth, which is to cover my body or give me comfort, that has got significantly extended in the consumer's mind. Are we trying and getting and answering those requirements of the customer? I feel these are questions which the textile business, if really addressed, will make the business significantly profitable. That's all from my side. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you very much. Very insightful. We'll be taking few points from here, and the importance of adopting modern technology and to achieve the business goals in the longer term, sustainable way. Focusing circularity in the business is very important. We noted this point, and also understanding the consumer's need. Investing in technology, looking at the consumer's need is very important. Very nice. So now I introduce Arindam Saha. He is Associate Director of PwC. He is he's going to moderate the whole session, and he'll have a lot of questions for you all panelists. Over to you, Arindam.
Thank you, Dibala. So first of all, really feeling fortunate to share the screen with all of you, and it's really an honor for me. So what we have planned, we will divide this discussion in two parts. In the first part of our discussion, we will be talking about ERP and other digital tools, but we'll be equally interested to know that what are the new age technologies in the manufacturing processes. So we have with us Rubaba Doular. She is the Country Managing Director of Oracle Bangladesh. Let me begin this panel discussion with a question to her. So Rubaba, our experience shows that the penetration of ERP and other digital tools are a bit low in the R&D sector of Bangladesh. In your opinion, what are the major reasons for this?
Thank you, first of all, for inviting me to this discussion. It's a very interesting topic. Talking about the adoption of technology, if you look at these 4,500 RMG units, which are now operating in Bangladesh, 1/3 of these have actually been set up after 2010. And they are the ones who are more pro-technology, so to speak, who have adopted automation and digitization, right? Prior to that, there are quite a few factories who have used legacy or homegrown solutions, especially if I talk about ERP. So the tier 1 ERP adoption is low because there are quite a few factors, historically, the factories have grown vertically. And only recently they're growing horizontally, right? And now more and more these companies are realizing that in order to be competitive in the market, in order to focus on those three things that buyers are looking for, cost efficiency, time, and of course the quality of goods that they're producing, they have to adopt technology. So in the manufacturing area, if I look at the factory itself, they are utilizing quite a few automated solutions for cutting, sewing, knitting, etc. But when it comes to process management, this is where we see the lag. One is because there's a gap between the development and the supply chain. Okay, so that the integration is not happening. Because when you want to deploy ERP, as you know, it's not a piecemeal basis that you can actually deploy ERP. It has to be integrated across all the possible processes that you're following, whether it's inventory management, it's resource planning, financial planning, etc., has to be integrated. And that's where we see the gap. So, they say garbage in is garbage out. So with the legacy systems or the homegrown systems, what had happened is a lot of the people had deployed a resource planning solution, but they didn't get the benefit out of it because those were not really geared or customized to provide the right kind of solution for the sector as per their current requirement. And hence, many factory owners who are also, it's actually driven by the owners themselves, right? So they're used to that legacy system. They have not really seen that much of enhancement in quality by utilizing those solutions. Hence, they are not really that willing to deploy. But more and more nowadays, when we are engaging with the customers, we're realizing that they are seeing more use cases, right? They see how it can actually provide more advantage to them. And hence they're now looking into putting in more, data analytics, more data-driven information that they want to, get in order for them to take informed decision. So the challenges, as I mentioned, one is it's mostly new factories which are now being deployed who are looking into automation. The other thing is, of course, the fact that they have had legacy systems. Now moving into a system which is almost $1 million system, it takes time for the owners to decide on that. But then when we talk about the benefits of it, that's where we come in with use cases and try to show them how it can actually benefit in terms of gaining competitive edge in the market. The other thing is, of course, when you even deploy such solution, the application of it, right? The use of it is also limited because the people are not fully trained to even utilize the benefits or the features that these ERP solutions have. So that's another area that we really have to focus on. That in order for you to have your backend fully automated and all the processes integrated, the people who are using it has to also get the optimum benefit out of it. And that's where we see also there's a lag. And hence, I feel that the adoption is probably not as high as we would like to see.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shubhava.
Yeah.
With this, let me come to Mr. Sudipta Ghosh. He is our leader in data analytics in PwC India. So, Sudipta, you are working in multiple geographies. So, a few of the factors which Rubaba has mentioned as some of the reasons why the penetration is low, specifically in Bangladesh. Do you see that it is true for other parts of South Asia as well, including India?
Sure. No, I think some of the questions, Rubaba, and the points which you have raised are very relevant, not just from the context of what you have seen and experienced in Bangladesh, but also in many other places, at least what we have seen. I think, but situation is changing, and I think there is a lot more acceptance in terms of using digital tools and data and analytics tools, not for any other reason, but for the fact that the external environment is changing very rapidly. So let me give you an example. At least if you look at the trends, if you look at the consumer demands, the consumer behaviors, it's changing very, very rapidly. And nothing could have been actually foreseen even 3 or 4 months or 5 months before. So that has given a bit of a realization to many organizations that whilst past experience of running the business is good, but in a situation where the past is not a good indicator of the future, you need to be a lot more data driven in your approach. Because if you don't do that, then either you are completely blindsided by what is happening, or you miss out on opportunities. So it cuts both ways, both from a risk management and protection perspective, as well as from the perspective of looking at new opportunities which will present itself, right? Which is why we are seeing that whilst there has been a bit of a reluctance, but organizations are now clearly realizing that there is a need, and there is a very important need for not just digitization, which kind of provides them with a lot of data, but also using that data in the most effective and efficient manner for taking the decisions, both tactical and strategic, with the specific objective of impacting the business benefits. So one clear thing which at least I have seen, Arindam, from my experience, is that digitization, data and analytics, digital tools are no longer nice to have things anymore. Every organization is realizing that this is an absolute critical need for survival as well as for growth.
Thanks, Sudipta. So, that whatever is the condition at this moment, whatever is the penetration level, it is ultimately all the stakeholders together, they need to put effort. Because as you rightly said, it is no more a choice, it's a must-have thing. So, Rubaba, if I come back to you and ask, what type of role you believe the government and the private sector may take in Bangladesh specifically to improve this condition, the present condition? How can we improve the penetration of these technologies?
I think we have to really think strategically when it comes to going through this journey of digital transformation. as I said, looking at the competitive landscape when it comes to the specific RMG sector, both government and private sector have come forward. As you may know, our country's vision is digital Bangladesh, right? For the last, almost 8 years, we have been developing, we have been digitizing, whether it's government entities or private entities, and that has been our focus. So when it comes to skill development for the youth, you may also know that 20% of the labor force in RMG is actually falling under that category, right? So 18 to 30 age group, so to speak. So skill development, and we often say that when you bring in more automation, there could be unemployment, right? So we are also focusing on that aspect, that we are deploying so many, 4 million workers going forward. How do we shift their skill set so that they are well utilized for the new tools or services that will be deployed in this particular sector? So government is doing that in order to prioritize certain aspects of the RMG sector. There are some reforms that are happening in the RMG sector itself. Under the able leadership of our new president, Ms. Rubanna Haq, who is the BJMEI president, she has taken quite a few steps. Just recently, she's also given a proposal for a technofocal upgradation fund for the RMG sector, which only focuses on more digitization and automation of this sector. And I believe once that is implemented, we will see more and more factories adopting to that, because it's survival of the fittest, right? Either you change or you actually fall behind in the competition. So that has been another focus area, and more semi-automation in the manufacturing area, more 3D printing, virtual sampling, all of that has already happened. So it's just a matter of higher rate of adoption across these factories that we are now forcing going forward. So I think, and as a technology vendor ourselves, Oracle, as you know, our ERP has been named as the sole leader as per the Gartner's Magic Quadrant, the cloud-based ERP. So we are focusing on creating that awareness and understanding among the owners, the CTOs of these factories, to understand that deploying such solution, how it can benefit them to integrate their back-end and front-end processes and get more competitive edge. So these are the things that we are doing so that we can definitely gain and generate more value out of it.
Thanks, Rubaba. Sudipta, would you like to add any more points? How do you think that what type of steps may be taken by the stakeholders so that the penetration improves? Any suggestion from you?
I think we have to go back to the basics, that penetration not for the sake of penetration, but penetration which truly adds value to the business. Because as long as the key stakeholders see that there is a significant business advantage and benefit, they will automatically go and adopt this. There is no reason why they would not. So the real focus, in my opinion, needs to communicate what business value it can provide in terms of making the processes more reliable, making the organization more scalable, making the knowledge more institutionalized, allowing organizations to take the benefits of the opportunities which comes in the market, being more connected and being able to create that ecosystem of suppliers and customers in such a way that you benefit the most, given the fact that there is a huge amount of cost pressure and price pressure, both from the sourcing as well as from the customer perspective. Any efficiency improvement significantly improves the overall health and the bottom line of the organization. Reduction of wastage, as my esteemed colleague Mr. Shogato mentioned, is something which is a very, very big importance. So I think the real need will be to talk about examples where organizations get convinced that this is the way forward, and then automatically the penetration will just be a consequence of that communication, if we can do that effectively. Thank
you. Now let me come to the user of these technologies. So we have with us Mr. Harish Chatterjee. He is the Vice President Manufacturing of Raymond Textiles. Raymond, as we all know, is a very trusted name for the textile sector. and they're also pioneer in adopting new technologies. Mr. Chatterjee, we would like to understand from you, or rather get your thoughts about adoption of these new technologies by the manufacturers. Specifically, what we understand that you are trying robotics in apparel manufacturing, and you are also using IoT. So our interest will be very specific to these two, and also, of course, the other technologies if you want to cover. Mr. Chatterjee, please.
Good evening, and thank you very much, everyone, for inviting us here and also to participate here. Raymond, our strength is only the adopting new technologies, and that is why we are surviving since last 98 years with the same quality of product, or the quality of the product is very high from the beginning, and still we are maintaining that. So, as Arindam, you said, we are every time we are the first who brought the best technology loom in India, that is Surya Loom, long back, and we were the first who brought that loom in India. And then we are adopting the best technology, whatever is available in the market, whether it is related with manufacturing or it is related with system, whether it is ERP systems or SAP systems or IoT and robotics and all. All the plants are having a showcase of older and newer technologies. So in Vapi plant, as Arindam, you said, we have robotics, we have IoT, we have all the systems for sustainability, for the ERP system, for our process. And as our other panelists also indicated, Mr. Saugata indicated, Ms. Dobla has indicated that how these things are important. So there was a concept, it was very difficult for textile industry because it was always run by the owner. So it was a difficult thing to tell them that please adopt this technology and this will give you a lot of benefits which you can see in the long run, not immediately. If you pay back and you want that you will get all the payback in 1 or 2 years, it will not. But it will give you so much comfort and quality and payback in long run. The dyeing department workers were suffering a lot with many of problems. So we have started adopting new technologies one by one, and then we went out for every year. We are going all around the world and seeing what new technologies are happening. And then we modified and we automate all our dyeing units, which were very old in Chhindwara plant, to fully automated. And that was the first in-house automated dye house in India, created by us. I tried also to patent it, then it was not our business, so we have not pursued it further, but it was there. And then in Vapi, we are having a dye house where hardly 30 to 32 workers are working, and we are producing 14 tons dye production per day. And all 3 shift operation, all 357 days working. So because there is no color loading, there is no dye loading by hand, there is no measurement by hand, it is all going automatic. So accuracy comes first, hazard goes, sustainability maintained, wastage of dyes and chemical reduced, raw material wastage reduced. Dye house was always having problem to not matching dyes and no color matching, shades are not matching, but using all this technology, and the machines are fully robotic and automatic. So workers are only doing one thing, they are just loading that material in the machine, and then nothing he has to do. Everything is controlled through automation. Not only that, robotics. Then with this, there are a lot of ERPs also attached. So like there is a dye we are having a small section where we are doing sample dyeing. And sample dyeing will be replicated in bulk, automated through IoT, and they are calculating, because there is a difference between sampling and bulk because the quantity is hugely different. But how you can calculate that? So that is also process dyeing. So that part dyeing has become so easy now. Second, there was a point, always people are saying that when you go for more automation, you will not provide better jobs. But what I am saying is, when you are having more automation, you are appointing better quality of workforce, and you are paying them more than what you are paying to the non-skilled workers. So their lifestyle is good. So you are supporting them for having their beautiful family life, as well as you are also getting a lot of benefits out of it. Not only that, in viewing, in spinning process, all this, whatever earlier it was like what machine is doing, one man is going and writing all the details, all the parameters. It is now all coming through ERP. Machine IoTs are talking to system IoTs, and they are all talking together. They're adjusting the machine speed. They're giving all the data, and you can get long back data also. So there is like, suppose you are getting some, because we are running around more than 35,000 SKUs, different shades, different blends. So it's very difficult to remember all that what you ran maybe 3 years back. So all the data comes automatically. It picks up from there. It adjusted the machine, and you are getting the results. So these are the systems. And second, with this, we are having all ERP system in our entire plant. We are running with SAP system. We are running with this TOC system, theory of constraint. So all the plant, all the loading, everything is running through the system. So there are chances of error is very less. There are no clerical staff in the entire Vapi plant. We don't have any clerical staff. So all clerical job like attendance monitoring, canteen. People are going to the canteen. They're just putting their fingers and they're getting a small coupon that they are giving to the counter and getting their food. So it is getting detected from salary directly, whatever they are paying. So all these systems where a lot of manpower were used. Now we are using that manpower for the quality job. And then now they are doing different jobs, and they are doing better job than what they were doing earlier. No attendance system, no manual attendance keeping system, no records for unnecessary leave and other things. Everything is automated. You can do it. And the person who is in charge of the departments, they're sitting at home. They're seeing what is happening in their department. So all the parameters they can see. If there is any emergency, they can get alarm. All the machines are giving a lot of maintenance prevention alarms also. You can get to know maybe in 15 days earlier that this bearing is going to give some malfunctioning after 10 days or 15 days. You can take preventive action. So breakdowns has gone down. Your raw material cost has gone up. Like all the wastage has gone down. Manpower utilization has worked very well. And as Mr. Saugata said earlier, it was a contract labor operated plants earlier, textiles. Now we are using very less contract workers. We are using only regular workers, permanent workers for all our machines, and we are appointing a good qualified, like 12 pass or graduate workers, those who can read and write little bit of English, not necessarily everything, but they can understand the systems. And the young boys are quite knowledgeable for all these utilizations. So a lot of informations are coming on their mobile. When the workers are getting, then multi-skilling like anything. The finishing worker can work in weaving department, and weaving worker can work anywhere in weaving department or spinning department. So multi-skilling. So the quality of all the work has improved.
Mr. Chatterjee, if I can ask a specific question. So robotics, the use of robotics in apparel manufacturing. Now, this has been debated a lot that whether this part of the world is ready for it or not. Now, as the labor cost is a bit low, if I can say, or let's put it this way, very economic at this part of the world, do you see that robotics is in now for apparel manufacturing? What kind of payback period or anything you are getting? What is the benefit of it?
Yeah, a lot of robotics are there in apparel manufacturing also. But yes, all the processes related with the quality of the product is mostly robotics. But like material shifting and all, which is not that like a quality conscious thing. And because Indian labors are cheap, so still not only in India but in Asia also, I think because the labor is cheaper than the robotic portion of that particular thing, so people are normally avoiding that. But yes, now slowly the labor cost is also increasing in India. It is not that cheap. And the young boys are also not ready to do all these jobs which earlier everybody, like people were doing. Their normal qualification level has also increased in India. They are very tech savvy. So young boys are very tech savvy. So new industries are coming. They are definitely they are adopting slowly robotics for the entire process. Yes, 50-60% robotics, already many of garment industries have already adopted. Even some of our garment process manufacturing units in Bangalore are having 70-80% robotics. The only some fabric, some garment shifting and other manual things are only there. Otherwise, everything is getting converted. And it is not decreasing the number of labors and all. You can utilize that labors for expansion of your process and your mill. When you put up a lot of robotics and automation, your production increases, your quality increases, so your market is also increases. So you can sell it, you can compare it with all other foreign markets, European markets and others, and you can compete with them, and you can definitely get a better market for this.
Right. Thanks, Mr. Chatterjee. Let us talk a bit about the future. So again, I will get back to Rubaba and ask that what are the new things what Oracle is planning, or maybe you can also throw out some of the lights about some of the developments happening in this sector.
Specific to RMG, as I mentioned earlier, our ERP solution, it's customizable, right? So you can customize it to the need of the country, to the operation, to the particular factory as per their processes. So that's an important aspect, because always, the plug and play solution doesn't work. So you really should be able to customize it. That's one area. We are focusing a lot on cloud-based ERP solution, right? So every solution that we are giving to this particular sector, we are mostly focusing on cloud-based services and solution, because it's easy to manage. The performance level is very good, availability is very good, and we are focusing as a whole, the entire expertise that we are building is also focusing on cloud-based solutions. So that's another thing. And when it comes to AI, artificial intelligence, IoT, or Industry 4.0, we are embedding all of those into our solution. So when we go to a factory and propose our ERP solution, we're also focusing on the fact that you can actually make use of those data that you'll be collecting through, machine learning or IoT. That can actually help you to increase your productivity, enhance your performance, and of course, minimize cost and wastage. The other thing is, of course, blockchain. Somebody touched upon it. That's another thing that we are also incorporating into our solution. That's another advanced technology, and more we see that across various manufacturing units, it's being used to bring in more transparency, more traceability, and efficiency, right? So we are also focusing on that and trying to engage that kind of conversation. Looking into the future, what can actually bring more advantage for this particular sector, because we definitely want to lead this sector and be the number one exporter in the world going forward. So in order to pace at that rate, we really have to probably leapfrog to certain technologies to be able to sustain in the long term.
I'll come back to Sudipta. Sudipta, you have worked in multiple, manufacturing industries, and so you have the understanding that what those manufacturing industries are doing or taking actions for adopting the digital technology. So, can you give us some of the examples or some of the learnings from the other industries which might be adopted in textile and apparel manufacturing?
Sure. So thanks, Arindam. So I'll give 3 examples. The first example is from the revenue enhancement perspective. The second example is a cost optimization perspective, and the third is a risk management perspective, right? And all of them are very, very relevant to both manufacturing in general as well as for textiles in particular. So the first one on the revenue enhancement side, what we are seeing is a renewed focus on demand sensing. This is a slight departure from a very traditional way in which demand forecasting used to be done in the past. When a demand forecasting or a revenue forecasting, you would look at the historical data, you will find some moving average or you'll do some exponential smoothing, and then you will forecast for the next quarter or for the next month, right? And it will be a moving average or a moving rolling forecast. What we are seeing is that while that methodology was quite okay, in stable environments where the environment is stable, the past is also very, a good indicator of the future. But what we have seen of late is that such type of methodologies are not working anymore because the error perceiving up. So that's where we are seeing a renewed focus on sensing the demand by going a little more external. Rather than looking at the internal data for projecting your future, can we not look at a little more external in terms of looking at what are the trends, looking at the macroeconomic factors, looking at the price indicators, even looking at some of the customer behaviors you can also capture, right? So the first point is demand sensing. Demand sensing also, what we are seeing is a huge focus on ensemble-based machine learning algorithms where you are not looking at only one model. You are looking at probably 30, 40 different types of models, and you are picking and choosing those models depending on which model is giving you the best accuracy or the least error, right? So that's one. And of course, if you are able to sense the demand very well, then you know that you can capture the market, you can be more responsive, your whiplash effect during the entire supply chain goes down, and everything else, right? So that's one. The second thing which I'm seeing, which is more from a cost optimization perspective, is looking at the process end to end, particularly looking at the back end processes of an organization. Now, when I say back-end processes, some of these could be finance-related processes like procure to pay, P2P, or an O2C, order to cash processes. Now, whenever we are looking at these processes, we are now using data mining techniques. We call them as process mining, where you look at the entire transactional data set, reconstruct the process from the data, and then figure out what are the inefficiencies in the process. Now, inefficiencies in the process can be because of three reasons. One is that you can have multiple variants of the processes. So you may not be following one standardized process, but you may be following 10 or 15 different processes. So it kind of gives you a view that there is a little bit of a non-standardized way in which the organization is working, and any standardization, we all know, improves the cost and ensures the scalability. The second piece is on the bottleneck or the time it takes between two steps, whatever is the longest performing task between two steps in a process, which you call as a critical path. You figure out what the critical path is, and that critical path only needs to be automated. We don't have to do the automation end to end and use a lot of cost and a lot of expense, because now organizations are very, very sensitive about spending. So let us only focus on those parts of the process which yield the maximum benefit in terms of the end-to-end reduction in the cycle time, right? So that's the second part. And the third interesting part is on the reworks. So we actually do a lot of rework when we do the process, and these kind of process mining techniques help you to understand why those reworks are happening. Is it a training issue? Is it an enablement issue? Is it a technology issue? Is it a process issue? So we address all of that, right? So that's the second piece on the process optimization or the cost optimization front. The third piece is on the fact that you can manage your risks better, right? Now, when I'm talking about risks, the biggest risk which organizations are facing from a supply chain perspective is the risk of disruptions. You're having disruptions from the suppliers, you're having disruptions from your factories, and you're also having disruptions because your demand is going haywire, right? Now, how do you take care of all these disruptions coming and hitting you all together at once, right? So the best way to manage that is to create a digital twin or a digital replica of your supply chain and have a simulation-based model to look at the impact of these disruptions on your inventories, on your service levels, on your value at risk, and you can actually simulate multiple such scenarios so that you are able to understand what risks your organization is getting exposed because of a COVID-like situation today, where every day is a new day, and you see some new headlines every day, right? So there, a simulation-based model on the digital replica, which uses advanced data and analytics techniques, is really a godsend for many organizations to have a very good handle on what is it that they are going to face, and they can then take the appropriate action to make it happen. So I'll pause there. It's a fairly longish answer to your short question, but these are the three main areas which I see where organizations can significantly benefit.
Thank you, Sudipta. I think we have discussed in depth about the digital technology side of it. May I now request Deepoda to take the discussion further and to do a deep dive about the processing part of it. So we have many new age technologies, and we have many stalwarts with us today in our panel. So over to you, Deepoda.
Thank you, Arindam. Let me now come to the manufacturing technology. I'll start with Shankar sir, and then I'll come to Mr. Ghosh. I mean, of course, we have two Ghosh, so I'll come to Developer Ghosh. Okay, Shankar sir, I have a question for you to start with. LMW is among the global leaders of short staple fiber spinning machinery and technology. If we look at the ring spinning, it is a pretty mature technology with more than 100 years of history, and it is undisputed. So, in which directions the innovations in this manufacturing technology are going to move in the coming years? How technology suppliers are approaching the future developments in this area? Up to you, Mr. Shankar.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gohain, and the other panel members who are joined today. The kind of flexibility and the suitability for different application which the ring spinning technology offers. Today, there is no other technology is able to match to that. I vividly remember in the year sometime mid-80s, when the open-end technology came in a big way, and everybody thought the open-end technology will take over the ring spinning technology, and there were some manufacturers wanting to discontinue the ring spinning technology at that point of time, even very leading brands. But unfortunately, the open-end technology also limited for its application and the flexibility which it can take for different, basically the fashion drives the whole manufacturing process, the entire supply chain. But the fashion always wanted a different type of yarn, different type of fibers, and different type of, varieties. And that none of the technology which came as a replacement, which every manufacturer thought they can do it, unfortunately it couldn't meet, and it is still sustaining. But the changes in the technology which has happened in the ring spinning, I remember when I started my career after my graduation in late 70s, and the ring spinning, it used to be running at about 16,000 RPM, which is always considered to be one of the best speed in those days. But today, people have surpassed 25,000 RPM. That's the change we are witnessing. And, thanks to the research and development, which has gone in by every manufacturer to make sure that today's need of the industry in terms of to be competitive and make more flexible for their customer need, the technological advancement has helped the industry to survive, even though it is a very traditional process of, if you take that, the number of processes is about 6, 7 to make a yarn, as against the 3 or 4 process in other case. But from my point of view, from our point of view, our company's point of view, the ring spinning technology, and also you can measure from the other manufacturers the amount of research and development which are going in for development of the ring spinning and advancement. I don't think there will be any technology which can replace completely in another 5 to 7 years. This is for sure. Because if something has to come, it should have come in by now to replace that. But it's not come, and at least for next 5, 7 years, I don't see any technology which can replace the ring spinning completely. And it would stay, and the kind of flexibility and for different application the ring spinning technology offers today is absolutely fantastic, and there is no technology which can replace. However, some portion of the process will be taken by the open-end spinning and also the air jet or air vortex. We do see, pretty positive scope for some of these technologies. But then 100% replacement for ring spinning technology is yet to come out. And that's the key point I wanted to say.
Yeah, that's a great insight. So we know ring spinning has survived over hundreds of years, and I'm damn sure it is going to survive another 100 years for sure at this moment. So let me come back to Mr. Debabrata Ghosh. Considering the mankind's future fiber requirement for clothing and technical applications, synthetics are going to be the answer. So synthetic fiber manufacturing is already a very high-tech industry where Oerlikon is a global leader in technology and markets. So I just want to know from you how synthetic fiber manufacturing technology would evolve in the future, and can South Asia be the epicenter of production? Debabrata Ghosh, up to you.
Yes, thanks, esteemed panelist, and my sincere thanks to the organizer and especially to Mr. Gohen for inviting me in this panel and giving me an opportunity to talk on behalf of Oerlikon Man-Made Fiber. Today, the synthetic fiber share of synthetic fiber in the world market in 2020 is 65%. In 1990, it was only 30%. So total volume of world textile fiber, including all natural fiber, is maybe 107 million tons in the world. Out of that, polyester filament is 40 million tons, and PSF, that is staple fiber, is 15 million tons. So you have seen, the world has seen how the synthetic fiber has captured the market. In future, we will see that man-made fiber producers are getting more and more integrated with the oil and refining companies. And directly the crude oil will be converted in the complete value chain up to the finished yarn or home textiles or technical textiles or PET bottle. So this is a remarkable development which is happening now in the world. China is already witnessing this. In China, most of these customers we have are going for backward integrations, and they build up their own refineries. And some of the refinery people, they have come forward for forward integrations and have entered into the spinning. The similar pattern we can see in India. The raw material producers of polyester, the PTA manufacturers and MEG manufacturers like Reliance, Indian Oil, also MCPI, this Mitsubishi Group, which belongs to the Chatterjee Group now. So these PTA manufacturers are now going forward and putting up the spinning plant so that the entire value chain is integrated. So in the future, what we are going to see is that number of spinning units will be reduced, and more integration is going to happen with the oil and refining companies. And also the clear direction is towards the clean technologies, smart factories, digitalizations, as well as Industry 4.0. This Industry 4.0 will be the solution for the future, and all the manufacturers will use more and more automations and the latest digitalization technology.
Very good insight how this polyester industry is going to develop. And we see that fashion industries, consumers are demanding more man-made fibers and synthetic fibers than natural fibers these days. So I'm damn sure this is going to happen in future, because demand is growing and natural fiber cannot deliver that much fiber. Coming back to Shankar sir again, we have a very interesting development in ARZ spinning technology. This ARZ spinning area is gaining a lot of traction in recent years. Can this technology be the future of yarn manufacturing, given its higher productivity and other advantages? Over to you, Shankar sir.
Mr. Govind, I do agree with you on the productivity point of view of the air-jet spinning. Naturally, for certain application, the air-jet spinning gives better economics in terms of through the productivity and also shortened process, which makes customer to get a better return on investment. And whereas the limitation there is the application point of view. And it is absolutely restricted to certain counts range and also certain fibers. Now, if you take, for example, 100% cotton, there's not a single customer who's been able to successfully make 100% cotton yarn and make a better return on investment. Whereas there are some customers who have made use of it for 100% viscose and 100% polyester. I'm talking about short staple. And that's where it was able to give, and that too for a particular range of count. So it's not able to offer a greater flexibility, and such as making a finer count yarn or some fancy yarns, and also for coarse count. So there's a kind of a limitation for certain bandwidth. The air-jet or air vortex spinning is able to, meet the need of the industry, and it has its own benefits, and also it has its certain limitation. Whether it would replace the entire ring spinning technology, I have a doubt, at least for, unless something else changes the whole, spinning aspect there. I don't see it as a possible alternate for the ring spinning technology. However, from LMW side, we realize that there is a certain segment of the market which would need air-jet spinning, and LMW also in the advanced stage to introduce to the market the air-jet spinning technology, probably the next financial year. Today, the industry, as others have spoke, there is a tremendous infusement of the automation, digitalization, and also using IoT and the kind of raw material management and the production management system, quality management system, and also the conditional management system, CMS. These are all now being adopted by the industry, including the automatic piecing device for the ring spinning. So in the future, these are going to really, be a part of the plant in order to sustain, in order to make sure, because as the other gentleman was saying, today the younger generation don't want to work in a textile factory. So they would always like to engage in a softer side, either IT side or going to some of the, retail showrooms and things like that, the younger generation, going to a textile factory is the least preferred job. So that becomes a big challenge for the textile factory to produce the yarn manufacture. So naturally, this technology, automation and the digitalization combined with the IoT are going to be the future. Now, we already have quite a few customers of ours have adopted this changeover, and I'm sure future many more automation and the digital factory is going to come in place. And that's where the entire focus is now from both end user in the spinning industry as well as from the manufacturers like us. And that is going to make the spinning plant to be successful. Otherwise, sustainability is going to be under question. So that's a point I want to share. Thank you.
We know that polyester was produced like a commodity. Now, with the change in the lifestyle, consumers are looking for specific functional properties in their fabric and apparels. For example, stretchability, fire retardant, moisture management, and now antimicrobial properties are they are very important functions of any wearable today. So will future of fiber manufacturing would be more towards catering specific consumer needs, or commodity product would continue to rule?
Definitely the big producers which are integrated with the oil and refining capacities, they will be more in the field of producing commodity yarn in the most competitive and cost-effective way, with highest efficiency and minimum wastage, as well as their plants will be all fully automated. So their conversion cost from converting the feedstock like PT and MAG into fiber or to bottle-grade chips or non-ovens will be the lowest. And their target will be definitely in the commodity market, which bulk requirement. On the other hand, there will be specialty producers, and specialty producers should have their own know-how. As well as with Oerlikon Barmag, we also help the customers to produce, to develop different type of products, different type of know-how we give them.
We have few questions from the industry as well. To Mr. Chatterjee sir and Mr. Sudipta Ghosh. We are the last days. I'll ask Arindam to take it over from here.
Yeah, so we have one question that is for both Mr. Basu and also to Mr. Chatterjee. So I request Mr. Basu to answer first. So the question has come that what is the major challenge area in the textile and apparel manufacturing where you'd like to have better solution from the technology providers?
I will answer with two parts to this question. And first, I'll pick up the manufacturing piece. And there, I think my challenge, especially in Aditya Birla and probably many other industries would have a similar challenge, is that the plants are old. So the ability to capture digital information from our assets gets very, very difficult. And any further analytics which you need to do gets limited because the source data is missing. So while a lot of work has happened in sensors and RFID and Bluetooth to enable this in terms of doing it easily and more economically, probably a lot more needs to be done, especially because in this industry, a lot of the factories are globally spread out. If I look at India as a country, maybe this technology is available and implementing it is fairly easy. But when I get into a Southeast Asia or I get into Africa, the ability of skilled resources to do this kind of enablement becomes limited. So I think we need to address that problem. The other part of the question, if I look at textiles as a business and I leave manufacturing outside of it, I think the biggest challenge for us, and I think the COVID has really brought it out, is that the agility of response to changing customer demand. I think that is the big thing. Earlier, we had a situation where the industry used to work on the basis of trade shows or fashion cycles. You would have 6 months to get your designs approved and then manufacture and then take it to the market. Now that cycle has collapsed. The brands want everything to be done much faster. The brands are willing to change things much faster. So how do we read customer demand better and how do we respond to customer demand faster? I think that is a very, very important piece. And I think technology players and the industry players need to work together to maybe have a textile specific platform, which we don't have today. The entire value chain, I think if we can leverage things like blockchain or AI and work together, maybe as a business, we will be able to increase the whole pie for us rather than trying to bite into smaller chunks. I don't know if that answers the question, Arindam.
Oh, thank you. So I will ask the same question to Mr. Chatterjee as well. So, Mr. Chatterjee, the question which we have received from the industry is, where is the need gap?
For old machineries, really it is very difficult. But the main important point here is if we have a mindset, if the entire management feels that yes, we need to do this. So like when we put up Vapi plant, we did a lot of modification in our old machineries in Chhindwara and Jalgaon plant. So this modification, there are sensors available. You cannot achieve the modification level with what you are getting with the new machines. But yes, definitely you can get a better results than what old machines were working, and then you can adopt that. But for that, biggest challenge is mindset and the change management, the workers, the management, local management, and the top management. So like it needs some money so that you have to convince the top management to get that. You need to teach your working staff there and the workers there how to handle that. Because when you are retrofitting things, when you are modifying machines, a little bit of more maintenance are required. And thirdly, you should have your own setup for developing things, because you cannot depend all the time on outsiders, because it's very expensive then. So if you have an internal team, those who can develop things like that, and they can adopt. So if you can go to my old plants, you will see a lot of internal developments. Like the plant team has developed many things, like, and they modified the machines, and the machines are at least increase their efficiency in production, in quality, and everything by at least 25%. So that is possible, but there are few machineries which are very, very old. It is not possible with that, and that is a big challenge. Second is when you are buying new machinery, that time also challenges comes with a organization, old organization like ours, because then the management compares with the other machines, old machineries. That time you brought the cost was like this, that why you are going for this high end and all this. We can reduce the modification, little bit of automation, the cost will also go down and all that. But you should have a proper analysis of the machine. You should read it properly. You should analyze the things and present it to the management for getting the approvals of that. So that is also one of the challenges which at present we are not facing, because now our management is totally with the mindset of adopting new technologies. So these are the challenges I am seeing, and because we represented many of government organizations to help unorganized sectors and industries, and we are advising them, and even we are supporting them to develop their old machineries with some new technologies, and sometimes it works very well. So that
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So, Dipota, would you like to take the next question?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Sudipto Ghosh. Is this industry a focus area for PwC India? I'm talking about this textile and apparel industry. And if yes, what are the data analytics and digital tools that you are offering to this industry?
Sure. Thank you very much. The answer is yes. It is a big focus area because it's one of the emerging areas. It has a lot of potential. And frankly speaking, for an industry as complex as this, if we don't use data and analytics, then which industry would we use, right? So the answer is a big yes. Coming back to the second part of your question, what are the areas? As I initially pointed out in my previous answer, that we need to look at it more from addressing the business problems. Currently, as we see it, the first part of the problem is to ensure that your supply chain is working in the most efficient manner. And the supply chain has got multiple complexities. There is a complexity because your demand is varying. There is a complexity because the SKUs can be very high in number, particularly on the finished goods side. Also, the supplier ecosystem is fairly complex, and the price, the procurement of the raw material, the quantity, etc., is going to add to that complexity. So, one big area of application for data and analytics is to do the demand sensing of the supply chain, which will improve the accuracy of the forecast, to do a proper inventory planning, distribution planning, end-to-end integrated planning and visibility of the supply chain. So that's the second piece. The third piece is around creating the digital twin to simulate the disruptions. And the fourth bit is about strengthening the processes within the supply chain so that inefficiencies can be brought down. These are the four. In addition to this, there are some support functions like finance, like sales and marketing, like HR, and there are specific point solutions around that. So, for example, if I'm looking at finance as a function, then we are looking at cost optimization, risk management, end-to-end view. If we are talking about HR, then we are talking about managing the entire workforce, both the permanent and the liquid workforce, and so on. So, multiple application areas, lots of use cases. And one more thing which I forgot to mention is that we are talking about a lot of machines. So whenever we are talking about machines, we are automatically talking about how do I reduce the cost of poor quality? How do I reduce my maintenance costs and overheads? And their application of data and analytics is tremendous and huge. So I would say that not just it is a focus area for PwC, but it's also something which is very important in terms of making use of all the advancements which has happened in the field of data and analytics to enhance and improve the business and create that impact which is necessary for this sector.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Arindam, you have a question?
So I will take up the last question of today's episode. And the question is for Mr. Chatterjee, Mr. Harish Chatterjee. So, Mr. Chatterjee, I'm sure that someone from the manufacturing sector has already sent it. So the question says that there are, I'm using his word, there are tall claims by robotics, automation, and digital technology suppliers about their contribution towards cost saving, efficiency, productivity, sustainability, and profitability. As a user of some of these technologies and processes, do you agree with them? Do you actually get such benefits, or there are any strings attached?
I don't agree with what he said. It is not a tall claim. It's a real claim. And you should have that vision, actually. If you are a short-term visionaries, you cannot see any benefit into this. You cannot see, because you can just simply say, okay, the workers can do, this quality can be improved and all this. But actually, it is giving a lot of saving in all respects, in manpower, in quality, in raw material, in power, in like everywhere. If you are very, very conscious, and if you are really sensible person and you are planning long term, it is very, very useful. And at least I have not come across any good suppliers, those who are claiming and we are not getting. We are getting the same what they are claiming, and it is all proven. It is 100% proven. If anybody wants to discuss any technology, which is fabric manufacturing technology, anybody is claiming and they want me to confirm that, or give some proof, or give some examples for that, I am ready to do that, because I personally feel that most of the technologies, what is available at present in the market for fabric manufacturing, and particularly for worsted and woolen, we are having that. So I can give the advantages, what advantages we are getting, how long term it is, or short term it is, and short term what benefits they will get, long term what benefits they will get, and how it works. But you should have an open mindset. That is the biggest problem. The mindset is a big problem for everyone. But now the young generation is really, I'm not saying that we olds are not adopting that, but the young generation is really adopting all these technologies because they are using that technology too much. So they know how it works and they are actually accepting that. So it's not a false claim, it's a real claim. I always feel like.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for advocating on behalf of the manufacturing sector. It will be really helpful. It will be really helpful for getting the message to the industry. So I think from the panel discussion and industry question point of view, we have concluded. Over to you, Dibodhan.
Yeah, I just want to say you thank you. I personally thank you, each member of this esteemed panel, for discussing every aspect of the technology that is available for manufacturers. Textile Excellence and PwC India would like to have you all again for such knowledge sharing sessions, and also would like to add value to your efforts where you go and work with the industry, or where you are into the manufacturing. We could also add some value as PwC and Textile Excellence, and we look forward to work together with you in future.